Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. My name is Ashna Sisodia and you are watching this session on Unacademy's YouTube Articulate channel. Our today's topic is Maritime Policy of India. Why Maritime Policy of India need a long-term vision. Now first of all, we'll try to understand what do you understand by maritime policy. Maritime policy, it refers to government's plans and the strategies which are aimed at promoting the development and use of its maritime resources and infrastructure, both domestically as well as internationally. So, India has a vast coastline. We have a vast coastline of 7,516 kilometers roughly, and we have got a large exclusive economic zone, that is EEZ, exclusive economic zone, which consists of more than 2 million square kilometers of Indian Ocean. The country is strategically located at the crossroads of international shipping lanes, making it an important player in the global maritime sector. You know, despite India's vast maritime resources and strategic location, its maritime sector has not been developed to its full potential, which is why India's maritime policy has been, reactive and fragmented. It lacks a long-term vision. And I think this has resulted in a number of challenges in front of India, which includes lack of integration, lack of investment. We have limited investment, inadequate regulation, and lack of skilled personnels. Like in terms of lack of integration, we can say different agencies and departments are responsible for the development and regulation of India's maritime sector, and often they work in silos without sufficient coordination or integration, which results in inefficient uses of resources, and there's a lack of consistency in policy implementation. We have limited investment because our maritime sector has not received the level of investment which is necessary to support its regional as well as its growth and development. So the lack of investment has resulted in inadequate infrastructure and limited access to the latest technology, inadequate regulation, uh, like we have the existing regulatory framework of India's maritime sector that is outdated, which is in need of reform, and there is a need for a more comprehensive and streamlined regulatory framework, which is able to address the needs of the industry while also ensuring the protection of the environment as well as the rights of workers. There's lack of skilled personnels. India's maritime sector is facing a shortage of skilled personnels. We are having shortage of engineers and management professionals. This lack of skilled personnel has resulted in a gap in the quality of services which are offered, and it has the limited the ability of the sector to compete globally. So I think a long term vision for India's maritime policy is crucial in order to address these challenges, in order to unlock the full potential of the country's maritime sector. And a comprehensive integrated approach is needed. All the elements related to that we will be discussing shortly, but I think from that point of view, let us first of all try to understand the major issue. So if somebody is going to ask you, you're going to simply say that maritime policy of India, it lacks a long term vision to counter China's expansionist designs in the Indo-Pacific. And on top of it, there have been a lot of issues with previous maritime policies, which resulted in a huge gap. There's a huge gap between India and China's current maritime capabilities. China has not only overtaken the US Navy in numbers, but it also has, the world's top ship producing nation. It is that. It has the largest merchant navy, coast guard, and fishing fleet, maritime militia in the world. An economically strong, expansionist, and militaristic China is a concern for India. Why? Because it will use the Maritime Silk Route Initiative, which it has introduced in 2013. This will be done to expand its sphere of influence and ensure dominance in the Indo-Pacific region. In fact, the People's Liberation Army, PLA Navy's crucial role in this relies on its formidable maritime industrial capabilities. And on the other hand, maritime sector in India is characterized by inefficiency and long-term vision. There's a gap between India and China's maritime capabilities. Like back in 2015, if you look at that, China laid down its first indigenous aircraft carrier in 2015 and China commissioned it in 2018. In fact, in 2021, work on India's first indigenous aircraft carrier commenced in 2009, and in 2021 the ship still awaits completion. That's why we can see a clear gap between India and China's maritime capabilities. Let's talk about the evolution of India's maritime policy and the issues that are involved in it. So we have Sagarmala. We know that India launched its first maritime modernization plan, Sagarmala, that was launched in 2003, which is almost simultaneously with China. The plan was announced with the objective of ensuring that all major ports would be connected to the Golden Highway Quadrilateral. It will be connected through a network of expressways. The idea behind this is to facilitate countrywide goods traffic to and from ports. And this was abandoned within months following the declaration of the general election. National Maritime Development Plan was also there. In 2005, Sagarmala was replaced with this plan, and this remained confined to modernization of port infrastructure and enhancement of railroad connectivity to these ports. 7 years after its commencement, Lok Sabha was informed that only 82 out of 276 projects had been completed, while 30 had been dropped and 66 of them were still in the planning stage. So which means that we seriously require a comprehensive and integrative approach. We need to have a strategic planning, because the development of a long-term vision for India's maritime policy, it should be based upon a comprehensive analysis of the country's strength, of its weaknesses, opportunities, as well as threats. So we have to go for the SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis of maritime policy. Investment is one such area. I think India's maritime sector requires significant investment in infrastructure, in technology, and human resources in order to support its growth and development. And the government should work closely with private sector in this regard to mobilize investment and to create a conducive environment for investment. Another issue involves in 2011 Maritime Agenda 2021 was announced. The government decided to abandon this plan which it had initiated in 2005. This was replaced with a 10-year plan. And what was the title? Maritime Agenda 2020. While the Sagarmala in 2003 and this plan in 2005 were focused mainly on port modernization and enhancing railroad connectivity, Maritime Agenda had a much broader scope because this agenda it envisaged an outlay of 5 lakh crore to achieve huge leaps in shipping tonnage in terms of shipbuilding, in terms of coastal trade, and apart from ports, cargo handling, and other capacities. But Maritime Agenda suffered from two problems. First, it had set an extremely unrealistic target. It was aimed to increase in just 7 to 8 years shipbuilding capacity by 5 times. Now, this will enhance cargo throughput in Indian ports by 4 times. This was very unrealistic, very ambitious. And the second problem was that this agenda showed clear signs of confusion regarding its objective. Because, as per this agenda, a roadmap to guide this ministry that was cited in one place, while at the other place it cited itself as more an agenda for consideration. So rather than agenda for action, it was an agenda for consideration that we will consider this. And that's why Maritime Agenda 2020 also failed to achieve anything of substance before it was overtaken by the next plan. There was in 2014 revival of Sagarmala. The government, the BJP government that came to power in 2014 followed the earlier practice and they terminated Maritime Agenda. They revived the Sagarmala project. So like all its predecessors, Sagarmala 2015 focused on modernizing ports and enhancing connectivity. But this version of Sagarmala was better. Why? Because it had a structured progress monitoring framework. However, the data from the Ministry of Shipping Sagarmala project tracker, which is updated until 2019, shows a project completion rate no better than the past trends. While this plan aimed to create 40 lakh direct jobs and 60 lakh indirect jobs, in 2019, the government admitted that only 10,000 jobs had been created. So there are problems with India's maritime sector, and one of them is excess focus on port connectivity. The exclusive focus of successive governments on port development has resulted into gross neglect of other critical components of India's maritime capability, which includes merchant shipping, shipbuilding, ship repair, seabed exploration, and fisheries. And all of these have implications for India's maritime security as well as its blue economy. Initiating programs with inappropriate aims, choosing unrealistic targets, abandoning and renaming projects, and not ensuring faithful implementation. These are some of the problems. Other includes major ports are overloaded and inefficient. They are inefficient. We have a dying shipbuilding industry. India's contribution to commercial shipbuilding globally is less than 1% today, which is far lower than 3.5% achieved in 2007 till 12. And only 20 of the country's 25 shipyards, whether it is big and small, private or state owned, only 20 of them are functional. There is inadequate merchant fleet. India's imports of crude oil, LPG, food, coal, and fertilizer supplies, which constitute the country's commercial security, these are all carried on foreign owned shipping vessels. And this is done for an estimated freight bill of $52 billion in value annually. Then, if we look at the seabed exploitation, this is yet to take off. We have a backward fishing industry. So, what do you think needs to be done? India should evolve a national strategy, I think, for the maritime sector for the next 50 years. And this maritime policy should receive Parliament's approval to ensure its survival through changes of government. You know, India's maritime sector has the potential, it can play a key role in the country's economic development. And this will only be possible if a long term vision for the sector is developed and implemented. The government should take a comprehensive and integrated approach to the development of the sector, and I think we should be working closely with private sectors and other stakeholders if we want to address the challenges and unlock its full potential. With the right policies and investment, we can, improve upon it. So, because of the strategic location, because of the economic interests, India has significant economic interest in Indo-Pacific region. We cannot let it go. We cannot neglect it. We cannot ignore this. In fact, Indo-Pacific region wise, if we think about it, Indo-Pacific region is vulnerable to terrorism and piracy, which threatens the security of shipping lanes and the safety of seafarers. India's maritime security is essential for the protection of these shipping lanes and for assuring the safety and security of seafarers in the region. We have maritime territorial disputes. Indo-Pacific region is plagued by maritime territorial disputes which pose a threat to stability and security in the region. India's maritime security is essential for the protection of its own maritime interest and for the resolution of these disputes. And on top of it, there are natural disasters. The Indo Pacific region is also prone to natural disasters like we have tsunamis and typhoons, which pose a threat to the safety and security of the region. So I think our maritime security policy is essential for the preparedness and response to such disasters. So in order to maintain its maritime security, specifically in the Indo-Pacific region, India must continue to build its maritime capabilities, and we should work closely with its regional partners. You know, we should strengthen our naval and coast guard forces. We can improve India's maritime infrastructure. We can increase its maritime domain awareness capabilities. India must also engage in regular dialogues with regional partners to address the security concerns and promote stability in the region. And I think this is very critical for stability and security part. So India can play a key role in promoting this. So, in the nutshell, in conclusion, what I can say is that the naval power is definitely going to play a decisive role in India China rivalry, but this can only happen with the backing of a strong maritime sector. Strong maritime sector. So, we have a full fledged course on political science and international relation optional on Unacademy Plus. If you're planning to take subscription, you want to finish the full syllabus, you can take subscription of Unacademy and you can use my code, which is Ashna Sisodia. If you use my code, you will be able to get some extra discount on your subscription. So maritime security and connectivity in Indo-Pacific region, these are the priority areas that need to be focused for India's economic growth and sustainable development. Such kind of question can be asked. You can comment on this. You may say that the term Indo-Pacific is gaining, currency as a new construct in recent times. You may say that Indo-Pacific provides a geographic and strategic expanse, with the two oceans being linked together by 10 ASEAN countries. You may talk about security in the region must be maintained through dialogue. You may say there should be a common rules-based order, freedom of navigation, there should be unimpeded commerce and settlement of disputes in accordance with international law. India is in favor of a rules-based, balanced and stable trade environment in the Indo-Pacific region. So sustainable connectivity initiatives promote mutual benefit. That should be continuously, fostered. So, what is the significance of maritime security and connectivity? The strategic significance you may highlight, because Indo-Pacific is a multipolar region contributing more than half of the world's GDP and population. Then you may also talk about, having a stable, secure, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region is an important pillar of India's strategic partnership with the other countries, especially USA. Then mineral resources, maritime territories have also emerged as depositories of vital resources. When it comes to the resources, you may talk about the marine fish stocks to minerals and offshore oil and gas. Then you may also say, the South China Sea, for instance, how it is estimated to hold some 10% of global catch of fish, as well as 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of gas. Economic growth wise, according to a report of Asian Development Bank, countries in the Indo-Pacific produce 60% of global GDP, making the region the largest single contributor to global growth. And also the commerce, how can we forget about it? The region consists of many of the world's vital choke points for global commerce, including Strait of Malacca, which is critical for the growth of world economy. So Indo-Pacific region also stands at the intersection of international trade, with around 32.2 million barrels of crude oil which pass through annually, and 40% of global exports coming from this region. You may also highlight maritime trade, how Pacific islands are strategically significant from New Delhi's point of view, as they sit aside important sea lines of communication through which important maritime trade is conducted. Then, connectivity wise, we are part of this IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. India is planning to put greater energy into this because the heart of its Indo-Pacific policy is rooted in Indian Ocean. Chinese threat is looming, and we are in a favor of rule-based order. So I think it is very important to adhere to freedom of navigation, a rule-based order, and stable trade environment, free sea and air lanes, connectivity, and upholding the international rules and norms. I think is very, very important. So, in conclusion, you will say that this region is highly heterogeneous in terms of economic size and level of development, with significant differences in security, establishment, and resources. And India has been an active participant in IORA, in East Asia Summit, ASEAN, and Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. So all these engagements portray India's increasing involvement in Indo-Pacific, and I think for keeping that in mind, India's maritime policy needs to have a long term vision. We need to maintain the delicate balance between the interest of all stakeholders, and that will be the most important and biggest challenge for us. India needs to carefully design its policy, maritime policy, with respect to Indo-Pacific policy also, while keeping its long-term strategic and economic interests in mind. So we are done with this. This is it for this session. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Good night.